Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you kind of part two, but part one doesn't necessarily need to be watched before this. If you are a member, this is the second part of the video, the more optimistic side of what Synaptic Nexus can do. If you are not a member, you can still watch this without missing anything, really. I have a video talking about what the state of synaptic nexus kind of is right now, and I'm a bit downer on it, I'll be honest. And this video will be the what it still does better than the other detachments, but I'll go ahead and say it now. I am not high on synaptic nexus at the moment. I do still think that you will get a lot of value in other detachments, but today I will give what I think it does better, and because I do think that there's some value in throwing out ideas into the ether of how this could be improved, that will be the later portion of this video. So I'm going to go through a bunch of tabs per usual. We're going to talk about all of the things. So let's go. Synaptic Nexus. I've talked about it several times, both in the members video and to the long time monstrosities, or longer time monstrosities, because I've been doing this for a while, but not for 40k, for all of that time. Now, I've said this before, right? That Synaptic Nexus is the Orc-Wa, but broken up across 3 turns. And that's kind of the problem as to why it doesn't necessarily work to the same extent, because it is asking you, instead of giving you a turn in which you are more durable, faster, and stronger, right? It gives you a turn in which you are more durable, a turn in which you are faster, and a turn in which you are stronger, quote unquote. Synapse now gives us +1 strength in melee, so you don't necessarily have to worry about that part being missing from the Wa per se. You get +1 to hit for melee attacks instead of +1 attacks, so it is what it is. However, the thing that happens with this is, do I not want to be all of the things at the same time, right? Now, mind you, having a detachment rule that activates for 1 turn would suck, but I think that that's where we can get into things later of this could just change. But beyond that, the other thing is, why do I want to be faster if I can't hit better? Why would I want to hit better if I can't make sure that I can get there? And the 5-up invulnerable save is nice, but this is, and this is just going to be another petty thing for me real quick. If I don't understand, people are like, yeah, just make 4-ups. And then any army that relies on making 4-ups is like, no, if you just don't make 4-ups, it sucks. So then when we take that to a 5-up, it's nice, but I don't want to depend on a 5-up. Cough, 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 cough. So yeah, 5-up invuln is decent, but you'll find a couple of things, right? Like, if you have a 3-up save base, to get put onto the 5-up, it requires AP2. Now, at range, that means that you have no cover. In melee, sure, you go to a 5-up. If you have a 3-up save, to go past that to a 6-up, again, you need to be at range getting targeted by AP3, and then not have cover to go to that 6-up. And in combat, it requires you to have a save of 4-up for AP2 to go to a 6-up, right? The things that will benefit from a 5-up invuln are not things that you will be happy to be depending on, per se. That's the things that benefit most from a 5-up invulnerable save. So to that point, the game plan of Synaptic Nexus has reared its head in a way that it kind of already told us so, but we we did the quirky thing of developing game plans completely around stratagems, which is something I'm not particularly fond of when it's one stratagem at a time. Um, when Synaptic Nexus first released, everybody's like, "Yeah, I'll just make Battle Shock, and then they'll take Mortals, one unit, any phase." And then it was like, well, asking Battle Shock tests to happen is inconsistent as all hell, and when it finally does, I spent 1 CP for maybe 2 or 3 mortal wounds. That's not very great. And then we've gone now into the we're leaving, I guess, because anybody that plays with an Armor of Contempt style stratagem will tell you that it just got significantly worse. So we are leaving the reinforced hive node dependence strategy. And in hindsight, looking back, I don't know why we did that. I don't really know why we did that. Like any other army that has Armor of Contempt, Void Armor, things like that. Nobody made entire lists with this in mind. But yet, as Tyranid players, we were like, yeah, I like that shit, and did it. And I find that kind of funny in hindsight. Then we also have Irresistible Will, which is Oath of Moment, in a way, with extra steps. You have to have a Synapse creature within 24 inches of and visible to the target, and then all of your stuff that is within 6 inches of the Synapse unit can shoot the thing that was 24 inches away from the Synapse unit to get reroll hit rolls of 1 and reroll wound rolls of 1. It's a couple of hoops, but you will make sure that something dies, and that's good. Not going to this is not me saying that it's bad, okay? But what I will say is that it is a lot of hoops to jump through, and the thing about Synaptic Nexus is that positioning matters so much in this detachment. It is that's probably the biggest weakness, is that for you to gain things, all of the things need to be around all of the things all of the time. You look at what made Assimilation Swarm weaker previously, into which it was the requirement to need to be on objectives with harvesters, and then those harvesters needed to be 6 inches, 9 with biophagic flow, with the on the target. You needed to control the objective. You couldn't just be there. And then, that was the whole thing. So they erased that part of the whole objective marker situation. Now you just have to be within quote unquote synapse range, 6 inches of harvesters. And the detachment is a lot better. So that's thing number one of what I would like to see with Synaptic Nexus going forward. To make it better is I don't want all of the range situations all of the time. Now the detachment rule is saying like, be within synapse range, that's cool, but this irresistible will can ease up a little bit. That within a foot of a synapse creature can ease up just if an enemy unit fails a battle shock test. You can target one synapse unit on your army and then trigger mortals for that, right? Like it just goes blam, it hurts. They got synapsized or something like that. Those are the ones that game plans develop around, and it's kind of odd. You want to do something that applies to all of that. So with that, what are the strengths still of Synaptic Nexus, and where do we go from here? I think we lean more into the staging and then the execution style of Synaptic Nexus, which isn't traditionally a very strong style of list making, because if your opponent knows that you are having to take steps towards a go turn, that's what makes the game plans harder to execute. Because they go, all right, if I disrupt this part of the go turn, you just kind of don't play anymore. And what is your go turn, quote unquote? The attempt with Synaptic Nexus is that you have several chances to quote unquote make a go turn, but your go turn isn't the strongest when you aren't combining all of the aspects. That's another thing that I would like Imperative Dominance to do, whereas like instead of replacing the imperative, I wish that it just added on. Kind of like how an invasion fleet it does. I feel that these are so whatever that giving somebody a 5 up invuln save and +1 to hit in melee won't be the world ender that, you know, was prepared for. So, what do we bring into Synaptic Nexus? I think I have to agree. You do take Neurot Tyrant for the list. Again, it was already a staple, but I didn't like the reason for the staple. It was we're taking the Neurot Tyrant and we're taking Zoanthropes so that I can spend 1 CP on fallback shooting charge when I need it. And it's like, this is before the Zoes were able to be attached to the Neurot Tyrant. So the Neurot Tyrant had big guns never tired anyway, with a flamer. So it's like, I guess. You also have the fact of irresistible will, into which you get rerolls, right? That's nice. But I have my Zoes in the danger zone, and unfortunately they have a 24-inch gun, and maybe I'll talk about ranges one day, into which that's why certain things happen. But I've just never been too keen on the think tank being in here because they don't gain anything else besides me having to spend a command point or 10 points. I have to spend so much to give them benefits compared to them receiving benefits. But they do turn on the detachment. Except that's more so what the Neurot Tyrant does. With Neuroloids, in your command phase, you can select up to 2 friendly Tyranids units within 18 inches of this model's unit. Until the start of your next command phase, the selected units are always considered to be within synapse range of your army. Perfectly fine. You send out 2 Neuroloids, and they get your detachment roll. Nice. For 105 points, I didn't like the old style of list design in which you are taking this to make your detachment work, but fine, we'll do that now. Psychic Terror also is important. If one or more models from your army with this ability are on the battlefield when you unleash the Shadow and the Warp, subtract 1 from the Battle Shock test for each enemy unit on the battlefield must take as a result. Okay, fine. I think this is the more important aspect of why you might want to bring the Neurot Tyrant for this list as a staple now, is because you only have 3 turns. And you're not Tau, you aren't Orcs either. You're this weird in between into which you have 3 turns to play with your benefits, but your benefits are not cracked to all hell, and it's not one massive go turn that combines all of the elements. It is you are walking up with a bunch of shit and then choosing things at times and maybe getting better, right? So if you take your Shadow in the Warp and make that a turn 4, not necessarily on turn 4, but a 4th turn of value by including a Neurot Tyrant while having something around Death Leaper or the Dirge Heart of Karus unit and a Synapse unit, you will find extra value and buy yourself time. Maybe the turn that you don't pop any of these. For example, turn 1, you probably didn't want to activate any of these. Maybe advance and charge, but that can be saved for something like a Norn Assimilator coming off the edge and turning that 9-inch charge into technically a 6-inch charge, right? Because you'll have +3 to the charge, or something like that. You probably on turn number one not going to be in melee, so maybe not on that. And then you have something to do on a turn five per se. Maybe it's on a turn three where you didn't need some of these things, or a turn four, right? Making your shadow in the warp fill in the void left by Synaptic Nexus gets better, and of course to make that more consistent, you bring the Neurot Tyrant. Now, who are we attaching to the Neurot Tyrant? Maybe the Neurot Guns. I'm not saying you do this every game, but I will take a hint or take a play out of the Orcs playbook again while we're stealing their shit. Uh, you can treat Neurogons like Gretchen, into which you bring a squad that is cheap and worthless, but has value here. If you attach them to the Neurot Tyrant, you get to benefit from Node Lash, where they get +1 to hit, and if the target is battle shocked, all of you get +1 to wound, right? And if you don't, you have a bunch of tiny bodies that you don't give a fuck what they do, but will receive all of the benefits and possibly put out more synapse to extend the range at to which you are giving your army benefits. I think we kind of banded the Neurogons a little too quickly, and more so to the point. This is Endless Multitude and Infantry that you don't care about. I'm not looking for them to be regenerated in Assimilation Swarm or Invasion Fleet. I'm not asking them to carry me in Unending Swarm. I don't care what happens to the Neurogons, except for the fact that, oh, also to the thing that I'm taking out of the Orcs playbook is that with Gretchen, you might have a big block of them. That way, your opponent can't discard Cull the Horde for free. There is technically an eligible target that they probably have to address. If they don't get those points. This is probably screening out your backline, or in this case, maybe after that card has come up in the front lines, and we'll talk about why in a second. So they can't discard it for free, and that's pretty much the value in itself. They either spend 1 CP to redraw, or they have to attempt it, and if they attempt it, much like the Gretchen, you go, why is this taking so much? You push up a bunch of Neurogons in whatever fucking turn, and preferably in turns in general before you have your hammer units come in. And then they get a 5-up invulnerable save, and you go, damn, why am I spending so much time on 22 bodies with a 5-up invulnerable save? This is annoying as fuck. Advance and charge rolls. Sure, if they get it, they get it. Why am I getting slowly punched by 22 models with +1 to hit? In Synapse, going from hitting on 4s to hitting on 3s with strength 3 to strength 4. That's randomly picking up shit like Eldari. Because nobody expected to get punched by Neurogons for 90 points. That's the that's one of the new strengths I see with Synaptic Nexus, more so that it isn't where you want to keep your infantry alive where you would in other detachments. It is hurling lesser bioforms at your opponent's face. You don't give a fuck what happens to them. You want them to just be annoying pieces of shit. Now, to the other side of what can attach to a Neurot Tyrant, we have the Tyrant Guard. I don't think that this is still going to be a very strong game plan with the reinforced hive node nerf. However, I do still think this is fine as a Blade of Wounds. A Blade of Wounds for who, you might ask? Remember I said we're being annoying? The Swarmlord. I think you just take some Tyrant Guard for Swarmy to get up into the middle of the board and put out Malign Presence. If this model is your Warlord, each time your opponent targets a unit from their army with a stratagem, if that unit is within a foot of this model, increase the cost of that use of that stratagem by 1 command point. While being Hive Commander at the start of your command phase, if this model is on the battlefield, you gain 1 command point. And domination of the hive mind. While a friendly Tyranid unit is within 9 inches of this model, that unit is within your army's Synapse range. I think, yeah, now Synaptic Nexus might be perfect for Swarmlord. Or, I guess more accurately, the Swarmlord might be perfect for Synaptic Nexus. Groundbreaking revelation, I know we didn't do that previously ever with Tyrant Guard or nothing, right? But more so, instead of making the Tyrant Guard the game plan moving forward, I think it's to deliver Swarmlord, put out this aura while there's a bunch of shit in the way that your opponent has to get through that they just didn't necessarily expect to. So, I think Swarmy, you're bringing Swarmy. Also, Wing Tyranid Prime and Gargoyles. More so, excuse me, Gargoyles and possibly Wing Tyranid Prime. This is a combo into which everybody has said it like it's a new thing in Warrior Bioform Onslaught. And I'm just like, guys, did nobody read Synaptic Nexus? Um, yes, you can give Gargoyles a 5-up invulnerable, like you can with the Neurot Guns in this situation, and make them harder to shift. 20 bodies that shot and scooted into your opponent's face, now at a 5-up save. That gets annoying. And the easier way to do this is by attaching the Wing Tyranid Prime. However, unlike Warrior Bioform Onslaught, you don't need to attach the Wing Tyranid Prime to achieve this. Now, you do need to be within the turn you are choosing that imperative, or spending a command point for it with Imperative Dominance. However, if the Gargoyles just happen to receive Synapse somehow, some way, you save yourself 65 points, and you can make them a 5-up invul. Now, of course, for consistency's sake, and the possibility of then adding sustained hits to them, fuck it, bring Wing Tyranid Prime, just so we can put things in our opponent's face and be an asshole. The other thing about attaching Wing Tyranid Prime is you are attaching a character that can hold enhancements, such as the Dirge Heart of Karis. Another thing that was a tactic, has been a tactic, but I guess, again, nobody necessarily looked at it too much. If you put the Dirge Heart of Karis, an enemy unit is within 9 inches of the bearer, worsen that unit's leadership characteristic by 1. So, you attach this to a Synapse model, and if it is the Wing Tyranid Prime and the Gargoyles, they get to go into your opponent's face and deliver a Shadow in the Warp that is even stronger. So, -1 from the Dirge Heart of Karis, and then -1 from being within 6 inches of a Synapse unit. Bam! There's your combo, and that's probably on a turn that you have already been annoying, or you are staging to be annoying because you are coming in from Deep Strike, so this is at least turn 2 or later, right? So there's that, and you can also receive that -1 from Neurot Guns, because they will gain the Synapse keyword when they are within Synapse range of a friendly Tyranid unit. Now, beware, I don't remember where the FAQ is on this page. Is it on this page? But they did clarify. Yep, perfect. If I select a unit of Neuroguns for a Neurotimes and Neurolord's ability that is not led by a Synapse unit, does that unit of Neuroguns gain the Synapse keyword? No. Don't know why they nerfed that, but they did, and keep that in mind. So it would have to be Synapse from somewhere else to give them the Synapse keyword to then let something that is tangling with 22 models of Neurot Guns take the Shadow and the Warp test at -1. So there's that. But yeah, Gargoyles, a tactic you can already do, can technically be better here because, for 80 points, you damn near guarantee one or two units because it's 20 models across. Um, is getting Battle Shock for a detachment that is asking you to spend your turns wisely. Then wrap it up on the worthless side. Oh, not worthless. Love the Hormigons. But the not too impressive stat side with the Hormigons, where they will benefit from everything, including the +1 to advance and or charge rolls handedly, because if you can keep them in Synapse range, they can advance and charge, so that's +2 to their movement for a turn, basically, right? Hormigons, love little things. The game plan, once more, throw some Hormigons up the board, throw Neurogons up the board, Gargoyles up the board, and fucking punish with the things to come, such as Swarmlord, Neurot Tyrant, any of that shit. Do all of the things. It's also to be mentioned that Hormigons are endless multitude, into which they do have quote unquote more value in Invasion Fleet, Assimilation Swarm, Unending Swarm. They will get bigger benefits from there, but I think that you get enough benefits from Synaptic Nexus that it's not too much to be missed from not playing in the other ones as well. Going forward, Von Rhine's Leapers, another infantry that is just another, why am I wasting so much time on this? People already don't want to be wasting time on Von Rhine's Leapers. I have already made a dedicated video about, hey, take Von Rhine's Leapers. That seems to be the most divisive unit I've ever talked about on this channel, apparently, and I've talked about some wild shit. Um, but Von Rhine's Leapers, yeah, if they go from having a 6-up invuln to a 5-up invuln, it's nice. They have fights first, infiltrators, and stealth. If they are now hitting on 2s, it's nice. With strength 6 from being in Synapse for the detachment, that's nice. +1 to advance or charge, and or charge, I guess. Well, they can't advance and charge in this detachment, so and or charge. +1 to advance or charge. There we go. For 10-inch movement, all fine benefits that they will benefit from, and this is one instance of where a Neurot Tyrant will help put Neuroloids on them. Bam, you're just profiting. Okay. Then we go into the next. This is the midway point. Parasite of Morx. We've already seen that it can give benefits in the detachment by triggering Battle Shock tests, so Smothering Shadow. It can carry enhancements such as Psychostatic Disruption, so you have a lone op that is screening out 12 inches from deep strikes, or you have the Dirt Shot of Cards to make the Battle Shock test more likely to happen every time this thing is at the start of the fight phase and within engagement range of an enemy unit. You also need an invuln. Well, you don't need it, but giving a lone op an invuln means that your opponent that thought they were just going to pick up the 4-up invulnerable save model with the slightest of ease, with the 4-up save model, it gets a little bit trickier. So there's that. It can benefit from the advance or charge. It already hits on 2s, but there's a lot of -1 to hit in the battle. Sorry, was playing Yu-Gi-Oh lately, or looking at Yu-Gi-Oh lately. Um, +1, -1 in the fight phase. This will cancel out if that's that turn. So Parasite of Morx, it also has Deep Strike. So that brings me to the next part of turn requirements with Synaptic Nexus. If you are not on the board to not get shot on turn 1, perfect. You didn't need to use your 5-up invuln to be more survivable. So I think Synaptic Nexus is good for making absolute bullshit in your opponent's face more durable than it should be for free, right? In Invasion Fleet, you can give um, anything a 5-up 5-up feel no pain. In Assimilation Swarm, you can with psychophages. I mean, psychophages aren't exclusive to Assimilation Swarm. You can give them a feel no pain and regen them, but for a turn, all of your shit that's within synapse range becomes a little bit more durable for fuck all, for free. It didn't require anything. You just get that. I mean, it technically required the synapse range, but you just get it, right? But to that other point though, I didn't care what they did turn one. If they got shot, they got shot. If they're still there turn two, your opponent is wondering why they're still there turn three. With Deep Strike, you come off from the board edge, or you not from the board edge. You come onto the board and you just profit because you weren't there turn one, and now you have the rest of your turns to play with, as you would with Deep Strike anyway. Another example, Malok can deal out mortal wounds. The Smothering Shadow is mortal wounds, possibly make people feel battle shock for more mortal wounds. We've seen the Malok in earlier iterations. I think now that the Trigon has been nerfed, and I mean, people are experimenting with Raveners more, but I think you just go back to looking at the Malok like, hey, you would like a 5 up invuln, plus 1 to hit, and possibly plus 1 to your advance or charge move, while giving mortal wounds and possible battle shock test. I think I want to bring you back. So I'd look at the Moloch again. And same argument with the Deep Strike. Screamer Killers. I've talked about this before. This is the best detachment for them, in my humble opinion. They could use the 5 up invuln. They could use the plus 1 to hit in melee. They can use the advance or the charge because they have an assault weapon. They have a blast weapon, so they can benefit from the fallback shoot and charge. They would like to get rerolls. They, with Death Scream in your shooting phase after this model has shot, select one unit hit by one or more of those attacks. That unit must take a battle shock test, subtracting one from that test. Will give battle shock tests that can be failed for the Smothering Shadow. Screamer Killer, damn near perfect. I don't like the price point, but for consideration, I think Screamer Killer, and this begins to ask the question of, do you prefer things in a detachment that make the detachment work, or things that benefit more from a detachment? Which one do you prefer? Right? Do I want to bring a unit because it turns my detachment on, such as the Neurot Tyrant, or do I want to bring a unit because my detachment turns it on, like the Screamer Killer? So if you have the points, maybe experiment some more with Screamer Killers. Hard specs. This is also going to the battle shock portion of, you know, it can do battle shock, and it would like all of the things in the detachment. But also, with Screamer Killer, I've talked about this quote unquote combo before. It's not a consistent combo, okay? But it is a combo that can be done, especially when you have access to fallback, shoot, and charge. Um, you shoot something with the Screamer Killer, and I realized in the take number 1 or 2 of this video, I did flub this video, that the Screamer Killer just went up in stock because of how Armor of Contempt works now, where it's finishing that attacking unit finishes the attacks, right? What happens is that if you shoot with the Screamer Killer, they have to choose if they are going to Armor of Contempt. They always had to do this. But because it would last for the rest of the phase, they would just turn it on and profit. But with the Screamer Killer, if you waste Armor of Contempt on the Screamer Killer, I wasn't aiming for you to have to do anything anyway. I was just doing it for the Battle Shock test. If you then fail that Battle Shock test, guess what? You won't be using Armor of Contempt for the rest of the turn. So, the thing is, you shoot with the Screamer Killer, they take that Gambit, and just assuming that you win, right? Assuming you win, or, I mean, you'll win either way now with the Screamer Killer. If they failed the Battle Shock test, you eat them with the horror specs because there was also probably some mortal wounds from the Smothering Shadow. Makes it easier to take out the unit and then trigger a Battle Shock test wider in the fight phase with the horror specs. And because nothing else got quote unquote targeted, it's not like they could save that for Armor of Contempt for a unit that isn't being targeted. So that's with the horror specs. Also, again, if they armor contempt at the Screamer Killer attack. They don't have access to it. Eat them with the Haruspecs, without mortal wound damage. But there you go. That's the quote unquote combo. It doesn't have the most consistent value, but when you achieve it, it feels good. And then going on to the Tyrannocyte. Why did I bring the Tyrannocyte up? More so you can get the Screamer Killer and or maybe the Swarmlord into position. It has Deep Strike. I've talked about Deep Strike being a thing that you want in this detachment because that means that you weren't getting shot. It also has the quirky little thing of neither it or any units embarked within it are counted towards any limits placed on the maximum number of reserves units you can start the battle with, so maybe for 105, maybe 210 points, you keep Swarmlord and a Screamer Killer or two safe to then deliver them because they are a Tyranid monster with 12 or less wounds. Mind you, you can't even fit a full squad of Neurot Guns, Gargoylers if you wanted to, within this. Or Gargoylers and Wing Prime, right? Which is just so goofy. But in the niche case that you are dying to use your egg, it has a place here with this game plan in mind. Now we enter the part of the part of the video into which I talk about what I would like to see Synaptic Nexus turn into to be more valuable. It would be nice if it gained from Wrathful Processions iteration now, into which it's at the start of the battle round, you can select one of the things and get it until the end of the battle round. And you can keep doing it. If you want to go one entire game with 5 up invuln versus ranged attacks, you can do it. I would like if I could just do that. My entire army, for the game, I have chosen to give it 5 up invuln. Or +1 to advance when I finally want to do that. +1 to hit in melee when I want to do that. It'd be nice if I could use this time and time again into this. I will even take the trade-off of not doing both at the same time, but I've seen what you've done for others, please do that for me. Also, it's fucking bullshit that the orcs got tactics. Don't get me wrong, I fucking love that the orcs got tactics, but it's bullshit that they got tactics. Meanwhile, my imperative, I am choosing to do that for all the units in Synapse range for at a turn, at a time. Meanwhile, orcs are yelling at each other to do the things that guard do. Can my imperatives be my Synapse giving commands like the lore to the lesser bioforms? Or I guess technically they aren't giving commands, they are just directing the commands from the hive mind. But you get my point. It would be nice if I was like, over there, 5 up invuln, over there, +1 to hit. I've seen what you've done for other Xenos. Please, GW, I beg. Or the final option, do it like Creations of Bile. Let me get to turn on 1 or 2 for the entire game. That would just be nice. This would make this so much better. Currently, my hot take is that it is worse than all of our other detachments. Because the other ones offer something else. And I know, I can hear you now. Unending Swarm exists. And I've tried to say it several times though. Unending Swarm still has play if you know your funky rules and the enhancements are good and you don't put so much stock into bringing 120 Termagants and Tervigon. We have Hormigons, we have Gargoyles, we have other things. Green Tide, right? Green Tide doesn't let you regen models. Well, okay, I take that back. It literally does, but not the entire unit, right? That was our biggest nerf. Um, they still can make things work. Crude Hunting Pack is still making it work. Chaos Cult is making it work. I just I'm not going to be the one to do it because I don't like moving that many models. If you look at most of my list, it stops at like 10 models. Okay, that's my play style. Um, Maybe one day I'll come around to actually playing Unending Swarm, like realistically, to show. But I there's more play in Unending Swarm than people know. I've tried to talk about it, but it is what it is. So Synaptic Nexus, I feel that it's so restricted by ranges and by timings that it isn't as flexible. And with this being a giant nerf, it just kind of hurts overall, right? This is restrictive, but it's good, right? Don't get me wrong, it's still good, but there's restrictions, a lot less valuable. It was never that powerful. And for these benefits that don't activate all at once, so that's not my big things that are gaining the benefits from everything overall. It's my little things, and then I have to deliver quote unquote hammers, such as with a Maliceptor. Maliceptor is still good in here. I was never big on using Reinforced Hive Node on it because it has a 3-up save, going to a 4-up invo, and it's like, okay, whatever, I guess. But Override Instincts gives you access to fallback shooting charge, which is something that a short range blast monster really needs access to. So, take things like that. Synaptic Nexus does still have things, I think. I would like it to have other versions of things, but it's okay. However, I do truly think I would rather be playing some other detachments for some of the list, such as Unending Swarm. Every time that I really like Synaptic Nexus or want to like Synaptic Nexus, something happens. And it's just weird at this point. It feels personal. So yeah, I'm done. That's my wrap up on what Synaptic Nexus can still do better than others and what I would like it to do in the future. But yeah, if you liked the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.